Okay, thank you. All right, so because we added this star to the argument, okay, it means the user can supply a value or can supply a number of them. So it means if I just do, like if I just write my email inside the function, if I print, let's say, hello, if I say my age is 45, I can, town is Kumasi, okay. If I run this, still the function will still work, okay. So the function still works whenever uh, uh, you provide a value, no matter the argument that you give to the function. So let me just clear this. But what if, for instance, let's see the type of the data that the user input. You see, so for instance, this one, I just did Ghana, hello, or let me just write 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I just apply this one to the function. Let me print it and see. All right, so we have this. But inside the print, what I want to do is I want to add the first value that the user entered to the second value. So to do that, you just write the name of your argument here. So it was values. So values. And to access the first value, you just bring your square bracket. And inside the square bracket, you just bring the position. So we said anytime you have less tuple or anything, to access the first value, it's just 0. Okay. If you want to access the second value, say we want to add the first value to the second value, you can just bring add, then you just type what you entered here, values, square brackets, 1. So even though I've entered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a number of them, if I click on run, it will give me 5, okay? Because of the definition I did to the function, I said you should add the first value to the second value, and the first value that I entered was 2. The second value is 3. Okay. So we use this when you are either expecting or is the input that you expect from the user is optional. That's when we bring star and a name. Okay, so this one can be anything. But to be more specific, let's say you want only 2 users. Say this is the general syntax. Just write the first, comma, the second. Right. So that's for argument in functions. Now, let's look at another thing. Let me clear this and declare a new one. So let's just write declare a new function. We said it starts with def, then space the name of the function. So this name can be um, um time. What is the time? Okay. Yes, the time. Okay, what is the time? That's the name of the function. We talked about how to name variables or how to name functions in our first class. So we can go over. Said because the function bracket open, bracket close, then colon, then the definition of the function. So what I want to do is I just want to print something to the user. I want to show the user something. So your current time is okay. Then what the user will enter. Okay. But what we want to do is, so let's say the user entered time. So we're expecting time from the user. Okay. So this and this should be equal. All right. So let's say someone is asking what's the time. So what is the time? But with this function, we also expect the user to enter time. Okay. So let's say the time is this 16. Okay. So once you run it, to tell you your current time is 11:16. Okay, because the user even mentioned the time here. Okay. Now the next thing is if the user doesn't enter any value, we can define a default to the user. Okay, so to define a default to the user, we can, inside the argument here, we can just do time is equal to, let's say, 8:59, okay, p.m. All right, we only do this if the user, so it means if the user is calling the function, okay, and does not enter any value, this will be given to, the default will be 8:36. So let's run and see. All right, so once we run it, even though the user didn't specify any value for the time, it has given us 8:36 because of what we've given to our function. But for instance, if the user enters 11:23, okay, AM, 11:23, if you run, you see it has overridden what we entered for our default. Okay, so this is for default in functions. So it's not always that you expect the user to enter something. What if the user decides not to enter anything? You need to provide an option for the user. You need to define a default value for the user. Okay, so these are the basic things that we talk about in functions. Now we want to combine MySQL, Python, and MySQL, Python, and the HTML and CSS that we've learned to build a real application. Okay, what we've done so far can build any application with what we've done. So for the basics, I will just give you an overview for what we do next week. Then when next week comes, by that time, you would have installed all the things I'll talk about today. Okay. Now, for the web application that we want to build, okay, we said Python is a programming language. Okay, and since it's a programming language, Python was not built specifically for web development. Okay, Python was not built for specifically for, let's say, machine learning or AI. It's just a general language. So to make it work with, or if you want to use it to build a web application, you need to install an application on the Python. Okay, so it's like a top up, like you want to add vocabulary to your language. Okay, so that's what you will do. Now, to add another thing on top of your language, or to add another thing on top of the Python, there are two things you need to note. Okay, the first thing is what we call library. Then the next thing is what we call framework. Okay, so with the library, this is the definition of library. So you see the definition that we've done, the function that we've been doing, you can compile it into, or you can package it as one. You put it online, and if anyone wants to use it, you can just write a documentation. If you want to do come here, this is what it should do, and a lot of people will be using it. Okay, so library are a number of methods or a number of functions that has come together that are, let's say, defined by anyone on the web that people can download and use. But the framework is the advanced part of a library. So the framework is like you have library, but on the library you can also add your own thing on top of the library. Okay, so with the web development that we want to do, we want to build our own web application. We don't want to build an application to look like someone's own or anything. We want to build our own. So it means we will use framework. We are not going to use any person's library to do. We want to use the library, then we will add something on top. So we'd have to install a framework. For Python, it has a number of frameworks, okay? So for web development, you can use what we call Django. Okay, so Django is a very popular framework that we use to build our web applications in Python. Also, we have what we call Flask. Okay, you can also use Flask to build your web applications. Now, let's see something. The Python that we are developing or we've been learning, we cannot use it together with MySQL. Okay, so it means to do that, we need some connections. We need to link MySQL to Python. Okay, and to do that, we need to also install a framework. Okay, for MySQL in the Python. So next week we will deal with Django and MySQL. Okay, so Django, connecting Django, MySQL to Python. Okay, the language that we are learning today. So it means we will download MySQL, we will also download Django. Now, for all programming languages that you know, Python, React, JavaScript, PHP, all those kind of stuff. To download, or if you want to bring any other framework to it, there's something that we use to manage the frameworks, or something that we use to manage the libraries. Okay, so the ones that we use to manage Python, we call it pip. Okay, so pip. So first they call it easy install, but now we call it pip. So it means to use Python, to use Django in Python, we need to install pip on our machine. Okay, so that we can use the pip to download the Django onto the Python. Please, is it clear? Now, to also use MySQL, we need the pip, because the Python cannot call MySQL onto itself. Okay, you need like intermediary. Okay, so the intermediary is the pip. So for Python, we use pip. When you talk about these JavaScript languages, they also call it npm. Okay, the node, they call it npm. So in Python, it's called pip. So to install pip, or to check whether your machine has pip, okay, you will just open your command prompt. You have opened my command prompt, if you can see. All right. So first thing that we need to do, whether it works, is we just type pip, okay? Then dash version. We want to check the version of the pip. Okay. So once I entered it, they said the command is not found, which means I don't have pip on my machine. So I need to download it. Okay. So to download the pip on Mac, can use Scale. I'll just send the instructions in the group on how to download pip on your machine, so that next week when we meet, we just pull Django, MySQL, and all those, and we can combine and build our web application. So it means I don't have pip, okay? And also for Windows, if you want to install pip on your machine, you can just go online. I'll send the URL also in the group. Just go online. The pip is very small. It's a package. It's very small. Just download it, install it on your machine. Then you can use the pip to call Django into your Python. Okay, and use. So that's that for today. If you have any question, just ask. We are done for the basics for Python. And you can see the basics that we've done. We've met 4 times. We use it to build complex applications, like any applications that you can think of. Okay. And also MySQL. Yesterday we met for MySQL. Yesterday we talked about a number of them, just that we've not started with function. So this week's class we'll try to finish with function, and next week too we can use MySQL with Python. CSS, HTML. This week to do some advanced one, so that next week you can just combine everything and start with the intermediate class. So by the end of this week, we'll be done with the basics Next week, we'll go to the intermediary. Okay, so intermediary is just combining all the four things that you've learned, the front end, the back end, the database, to build a live application. So for next week class, if you can have an application in mind, we are going to vote on the application that you want to build. Then you can start working on it. Do you have any question?
Hello.
Hello, yeah, you can ask your question. Yes, any other question? All right, so I think that's that for today. Just go over what you've done. Okay, if you don't understand, it's not an issue. Once we start building live applications, you get to understand what you've done. Okay, so all these things, first when they were teaching us, I didn't get it because I didn't get to know the use of it. But once I started building live application, I got to know, oh yeah, 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 okay, okay. So this was what they meant. Okay. So if you just go through and you don't understand, it's not a problem at all. Just get the concept. For instance, how to declare tuples, how to declare lists. Okay. And when we start building live application, you actually get it. Okay. So have a good day. If you don't have further questions,